2022 Mazda 3 Turbo Sedan. This capable compact sedan is priced at around $35,000, getting it close to some luxury rivals. Now, Mazda hasn't always been in this premium segment. They still cater to the mass market with the 2-liter and the 2.5 naturally aspirated engines. Both this fully loaded turbo sedan and hatchback brother in the Mazda 3 lineup, the Japanese automaker is taking shots at traditional luxury rivals. Acura has the all-new Integra coming out, and can this Mazda 3 Turbo Sedan and its hatchback sibling really take on the full brunt of the Integra lineup? Today we'll find out just how premium this Mazda 3 is. Hey guys, if you're new to the channel, my name's Kirk. If you're into Japanese and Korean cars, make sure to subscribe. Also stay to the end because I'm going to be reading your questions about the Mazda 3 Turbo Sedan. Now, this newest generation of Mazda 3 has been out for a few years now, and it definitely looks a little bit more premium than its closest Japanese rivals like the Sentra, Civic, and Corolla. Starting with the grille. On the Sedan Turbo, we have chrome that outlines the bottom of the grille and the lights, but on the hatchback Turbo, you have a nice blacked out setting here. So it would have been nice if Mazda included that little bit more blacked out, but I guess a hatchback is more marketed towards younger, more sporty drivers than this more gentleman's sedan variant. I love the line that flows from the top of the grille all the way to the A-pillar. And as we go down to the wheels, we have 18-inch black glossy wheels, 215 by 45s. On the Bridgestone Turanza tires, they do grip pretty well, as we'll find out later, but they also have some drawbacks with these large wheels. On the top of the windows, we have a chrome bezel. Now, it does match the front of the grille, so it doesn't bother me too much, but on a sporty sedan like this, I wouldn't mind if that was a little bit more dark. We also have a very minimal side skirt at the bottom. As we go towards the back, we have a little spoiler on this turbo sedan model. We have nice polished exhaust tips that definitely look the part, and you don't always see dual exhaust on models in this segment. The taillights look solid, but they don't look quite as premium as they do on the new CX-30 or even the hatchback variant of this Mazda 3 Turbo. Opening the trunk here, we have about 13 cubic feet of space. Unfortunately, I'm not able to fold down this right seat. It looks like this lever is broken and there's no lever on the inside to fold down the rear seats. The left side lever still works, which thankfully that's the 60% folding portion of the seat. Underneath the floor, we have a spare tire, which is great to see in today's day and age. On the trunk lid, we also have a handle that helps you pull it down and close it. Underneath the hood, we're greeted with the 2.5-liter Skyactiv-G turbo, producing 227 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. But putting 93 octane in here will get you to 250 horse and 320 pound-feet of torque. Made it exclusively to an automatic. This is a 6-speed automatic that we see in so many other Mazda products. And as Mazda brings in their larger platform this year, the CX-60, CX-70, 80, and 90, we'll see them get rid of the Skyactiv-G Turbo in favor for inline 6s, plug-in hybrids, and an 8-speed dual clutch auto. But that's for their even more premium large platform vehicles, and I expect this Skyactiv-G Turbo 2.5-liter to exist for a very, very long time, especially since the CX-50 just came out sporting this same engine. Now, if you've been in a newer Mazda product, you know that their interiors definitely hit above their class. Starting at the top of the door, we have a pretty hard but still soft touch material. Then it's followed by a real soft, gushy seat-like material that has a nice brown accent stitching to it. And just like the Mazda CX-9, there is a little bit of highly reflective trim on the door here that when the sun hits it just right, can blind you a little bit. We have the Bose sound system on this particular model, 12 speakers. It sounds outstanding, and it has a beautiful aluminum speaker cover here. Glossy black surrounding the controls on the door for the windows and locks. On the armrest is an exquisitely soft material that you can bury your elbows in and it feels great. The leather seats are really comfortable and they have a nice bronzish stitching to them to accent the stitching on the doors and the dash. Speaking of the dash, we have a pillowy soft dash in front of the screen. And above that, we have a harder but yet still soft touch material that forms the top of the dash. I'm always keeping an eye out for frayed stitching on the steering wheels for review cars, and this steering wheel looks excellent with its stitching, and the comfort for my hands is really good with this heated steering wheel. We also have heated seats, no ventilated seats. Behind the steering wheel is a digital cluster hidden behind a physical ring. On the outside are analog displays, and guys, I'm so sick of fully digital MIDs. I look at screens all day for a living, so it's always nice to get in a Mazda where they really tone down the amount of digitalization and digital displays that are thrown at you. And oftentimes I'm not even looking at these analog clocks or digital display in the middle. I'm looking at the very clear and bright heads-up display that gives me all the information I need, including blind spot monitor. In the center, we have a high-resolution 10-inch screen. You can only interact with it with the rotary dial. It always takes me a while to get used to that in a Mazda vehicle. I wish they would just include touchscreen interface alongside the rotary dial, because there are instances where I would rather touch and there are instances where I'd rather use the rotary dial. Also, that brings me to the preset buttons. There really are no preset buttons in this Mazda 3 that I've found. The buttons on the steering wheel that indicate presets only rewind and fast forward live satellite radio. Same thing with the forward and preset button around the volume knob. Climate control is very minimalistic. We have 2 vents in front of the passenger, 2 vents in front of the driver, and 2 knobs here for the climate control heat and coolness. We also have a plus and minus fan control in the middle, and a digital display to tell you the temperature. 2 cup holders behind the shifter with some storage behind that. And speaking of the shifter, it is buried in a sea of glossy black plastic, which is already showing some signs of scratches and shows fingerprints and dust unnecessarily. But the shifter does feel good, even though it does have some highly reflective materials on it, like we see on the steering wheel and the doors, but the leather on it feels great. The center console here is surrounded by some soft leather material, and the armrest, not only, like I said, on the door panel is very comfortable, but in the middle of the vehicle is exquisitely comfortable for my elbows to rest and put a lot of pressure on. The storage in the center of the vehicle is pretty small. We do have a couple USB ports in there, as well as a 12-volt accessory plug-in. It does have a small felt liner in it that is not attached, and it reminds me of the small things in this vehicle that scream premium. Not everything, we'll talk about that when we drive it, but as I let down the glove box, we have a hydraulically controlled or shock controlled glove box descent, which I always appreciate even in the lesser expensive Mazda models. But it's not just the slow descent. Mazda takes it a step further with these rubber donuts on each end of the glove box door. So when you close it, it closes nice and quietly. This rear view mirror feels so good. It feels better than just about any other rear view mirror I've ever moved around. It's large, it's bezel-less. You have garage door openers on the bottom, but when you go to move it, you're not greeted with a bunch of creaky, gross plastic sounds. It just feels super solid, and it moves around with a very heavy weight to it. It just feels super high quality. Sunglass holder on the top with a couple map lights. We also have our sunroof controls at the top. Vanity light with the visor. It doesn't pull out, but you have the extender here on the edge. Getting in the back seat, it is very tight back here. It feels tighter than the Corolla hatchback that I was just in last week. Fortunately, these leather seats have a nice cutout in the middle, but I don't feel that comfortable with my knees straight ahead of me. I like to move my feet out, and unfortunately, since this is an all-wheel drive model, we have a huge drive shaft tunnel in the middle that is definitely taking up a ton of feet space. So if you're planning to put adults in the back of your Mazda 3, maybe go look at a CX-5. Even that doesn't have a lot of space. CX-50 will have more space as it comes out this year. You'll also find yourself a gently used Mazda 6. Hopefully they bring it back. But back to this back seat, back to reality. The door here in the back actually feels the same high quality as it does in the front. And oftentimes in vehicles, they cut costs by having a cheaper adorned back door. Not the case here in this Mazda 3. And even though my knees are disappearing to the back of the seat, my head still isn't touching the top of the roof here. There are no vents here in the back seat. I do have cup holders, and I don't have any USB chargers, so you're stuck with the 2 in the center console. No, get away. This is what happens when you film in the Everglades, essentially. 1 map packet on the edge, and I got to get back into the car and get these bugs out of here so we can review it. Back in the review spot, we have a really high resolution 360 camera, which is great to see as we pull out here. Yes, this does have all-wheel drive. I'm a little bit off the beaten path, as you guys can tell, but I'm not going to be off-roading this vehicle. But I will talk about maybe it's what it sounds like here on this gravel road. We do have a lot of noise coming through this vehicle. First things first, we're in the top line turbo model, so we need to test out this turbo. I'm gonna hammer it down. Interesting, okay. All right, well, It sure shifts a little bit in first gear. It only got to about 5,000 RPM, but then in second gear went all the way to 6,000 RPM. And this vehicle is quick. I think one of you asked about 0 to 60. We'll do that later when we get to your question. But I want to test out the braking here as well, because this should be a performance model. It needs to keep up with, in some ways, the new Integra. And we know that's based off the SI, so it does perform well. Getting on the brakes late here, coming for about 45. Good progression. It's good. Nothing bad to say. We're gonna get back on the gas here from a stop. And that all-wheel drive, you can just hammer it out of a stop. No tire slippage, and there's 60 already. So it gets up to speed quick, as you would expect. 227 plus horsepower, depending on what kind of quality fuel you put in it. Now, luckily, I'm on a very smooth road here. This vehicle, and I remember driving this in Omaha, which was not that enjoyable, unfortunately, because the roads are so bad in the Midwest. Yeah, the brakes are good. Oh my gosh, pothole. Oh no. But even with clear and clean roads here in South Florida, you still hear quite a bit of road noise coming in through these 18-inch wheels and tires. It's unfortunate. I wish there was a little bit more body insulation from the road, because when you're up to speed on the highway, a lot of cars in its class, most of what you hear is wind noise. So I don't get a lot of wind noise in here, but conversely, I get a lot of road noise. Now, that probably changes significantly when you equip this vehicle with thicker tires and smaller wheels on the lesser packages. When I was up to speed on the highway, it was in the low 80s decibels, which is more quiet than the Sentra and the Civic Si that I drove, but it's not quiet by any means. Now, when it comes to handling, it feels pretty heavy, and I don't know why. And also, my Android Auto just got kicked out, and that's something I've had trouble with in other Mazda products in the past. It'll just zip me out of my Android Auto. And it's not the cable, because I've used this cable in many other products before, meaning cars, and I haven't had disconnect issues as often as I do in this vehicle. But back to the handling, there's no one behind me, so I can kind of be a bit weird here. It does feel agile, but it does feel a little bit top heavy. And the leader in this segment in terms of steering feel and handling has to be the new Civic, especially the Civic Si. This vehicle doesn't feel as fun and lightweight as that car does. And the ride quality isn't as good either. Even though that vehicle is very stiff in the Si trim, it still has better ride quality, at least in my feeling, compared to this Mazda 3 sedan with the big 18-inch wheels. All right, no one's behind me, so this is a good time to do that 0 to 60 that you guys were asking about. Great question. I'm gonna torque brake it to about 2,500 and go. As you would expect with all-wheel drive, it launches extremely well. And there's 70, so 0 to 60 in 6.31. Probably in perfect conditions on a track, you can probably bust below 6 seconds, but I'm happy with that result. It's definitely faster than the Civic Si in a straight line. But most importantly with this engine, it is very livable. You don't have to wind it out. In fact, it's not that rewarding to wind it out, because the power sensation is all about torque in this vehicle, and you get that 310, 320 pound-feet of torque available real down low. So you don't need to wind this engine out to pass vehicles or just to keep up with traffic. It doesn't sound particularly amazing, but when you let go of the gas, you do hear a little hiss from the turbo. Looks like my Android Auto reconnected itself, so that's good to see. We got a nice turn here into Ave Maria, where I can take this vehicle with some good speed, some good momentum pulling into the drive here. So I'm going about 50, slow it down to about 45, and I'm gonna sling it in. Nice Chevy pickup truck there. Yeah, it feels really good. It feels planned, especially when you get back on the gas. Like I said, you do have a little bit of body roll, and oh, that suspension, you do feel everything. Like I said, the 18-inch wheels and tires don't help the cause, but I think Mazda can do quite a bit with the next generation Mazda 3 to make it feel a little bit more nimble, starting with the hood. Mazdas, for whatever reason, have the heaviest hoods Mazda 6, Mazda 3 come to mind, and they don't have hydraulics to help you lift them up. So it's not that enjoyable to do in the heat, the summer heat, which I know it's like technically the first day of spring at the time of this recording, but it is 85 degrees where I live. So it's summer heat, and you touch that hood, you're looking for places to put your hands where you're not singeing your skin off. And some people might say, well, Kirk, you know, the reason why it doesn't feel as good as the Civic Si in the turns is because it has a torsion beam in the back. I don't think that's the case. This torsion beam does feel pretty good here. It's the best torsion beam probably I've driven in. And you can have minimal body roll with a torsion beam. So I think it's just a lot of weight up top in this vehicle. The turbo engine's pretty heavy compared to the 1.5 liter turbo that we have in the Honda Civic. So it just feels like a heavier vehicle, and it does feel more premium on the inside compared to most of its common rivals. But this vehicle, how it's priced over $34K, is not priced at its common rivals. It's priced at the premium segment, and it does feel very premium here. The materials, the quality, in terms of vibrations and noise, sometimes I hear a little bit of a rattle around where the speaker is, but I don't hear it now, so it's off and on. And speaking of rattling, I do get a little bit of rattling in the back when I'm pumping the sound system to the max. Sometimes I hear it, sometimes I don't. I think it's really up to the vibration or the frequency of that particular bass note that's going through. So for the most part, there isn't really any annoying cracking noises or rattles going on in here. It's a very solid vehicle. Coming onto the brakes hard, a good amount of travel, but it is very predictable. So no problems with the brakes, and just accelerating normally here, it does it so effortlessly. And the engine's actually really quiet when you're not throttling it out. Like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't really have a particularly great exhaust note or engine note, but it doesn't sound bad either. It seems like Mazda has wanted to take that engine sound out of here pretty much at all speeds unless you're pushing it full tilt. So with this 2.5 liter Mazda 3 turbo sedan loaded up, is it worth the $35,000? Well, one, if I were in the market, I would wait for the new Integra to come out, wait for driving impressions. We know the pricing, starting price of the vehicle is around $30,000, but you can't get the manual in that car unless you spend all of the money and go for the A-spec technology package. So here in this vehicle, the only way you can get a manual is on the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated. Unfortunately, you cannot get it on this turbo model, and that's, you know, definitely a check mark in the Integra's book, which should come really close in price to this vehicle, even at the top of the line technology A-spec package. And if the pricing of that Integra is the same as this vehicle with the manual, I'd probably lean towards the Integra. Okay, finishing up the review with your questions. Chillin' in DC says, tell us what's new for 2022 compared to the 2021 model. Well, I think pricing went up. Everything's getting more expensive. Also, there's a new color called Platinum Quartz Metallic. Some ridiculous name. CP Metis, a lot of people be cross-shopping this between the Integra, so it's probably worth comparing the auto to how you expect the SI engine numbers match to the CVT. Well, this is gonna be better than the CVT every day of the week. I love this 6-speed auto. It's my cross-shop after seeing the BS with the MK8 Volkswagen after some time with the Acura subs. I know I'm not the only one at this point. I'm just waiting to give the Integra a test drive for the benefit of the doubt. It's gonna drive outstanding. The steering is gonna feel great. The handling is going to be better feeling than this vehicle, I have no doubt about it. I also expect that vehicle to be quieter and have better dampening and road noise management compared to this vehicle. But this vehicle is more powerful, and it has that great automatic 6-speed compared to a wishy-washy CVT. Now the CVT in the Integra isn't bad because the new CVT on the Civic's pretty good for a CVT. I would still take an automatic any day of the week. So for me, the best route to go with the Integra is going to be that 6-speed manual. But if you don't want that manual life, you would probably be happier with the driving mechanics of this automatic in here. Mark Cooper's real world realistic MPG. Some people are claiming they can't get above 20 on a mixed commute or 24 on the highway. Smells fishy to me. On the way out here to the middle of nowhere where I'm driving about 55, 60 miles per hour, I got 31, 32 miles per gallon. Now that's really high. That's best case scenario. So it depends on how fast you're driving. I would say probably 25, 26 at 70 miles an hour and probably 18, 19 in town. So low 20s is where I'd expect this vehicle to be for the average person. Possibly to actually test all-wheel drive on some loose surfaces. No, I'm not going to do that on this vehicle. I don't want to mess up any of the body on the bottom of the vehicle. Also NVH, it is pretty noisy on the highway, not as noisy as some of its rivals, but it costs a lot more than its, you know, mass market rivals. You do get a lot of harshness from the road with these skinny tires. I just went over some rough surfaces and we know it's already a pretty harsh ride, but I did feel a noticeable amount through my hands and the steering wheel as well. Sound system versus Lexus, Acura, Genesis. No, it's not as good as those. You're comparing that to the Mark Levinson, the ELS, and the Lexicon. Those are all way above this. This is really, really good. And it might be, and the Mazda and Bose sound systems together are some of the best sound systems from Bose I've heard in a car, if not the best. So it's really, really good, just not that next level ELS Mark Lev sort of quality. Matthew Fuller, been looking at a Mazda 3 turbo sedan for a couple years now. Currently daily driver is a 14 SI. I'm left with very bad taste in my mouth after the Canadian friends got a much more fully featured Civic Si. I get it. Elantra N is overly ostentatious for a middle-aged professional. Can I call 40-year-old middle-aged? I think so. At the same time, I'm worried about the torsion beer rear suspension of the Mazda 3 will be a letdown. No, it's really good. And in fact, this vehicle drives and feels a lot better than, let's say, the Corolla hatchback or the Sentra, which all have independent rears as far as I know, but it does handle and feel good. It's just that it's not helping, I don't think, in terms of harshness from the road. Brandon Ishizu, storage capacity would be nice. 13.2 cubic feet in the back. Like I said, the rear seat is broken in this. It doesn't fold down for me. And I'm going to go pick up groceries after this on the way home, so you guys can take a look at that picture. Next question, Jonathan Banks, for the last question as well. In your review, take some time to test driver assistance features, in lane keep, and whatnot. I want to see if Mazda is working on any sort of driving automation updates. Last I heard they were working on some Copilot. Well, I don't know anything about Copilot. You're probably going to have that in the large platform vehicles with the Mazda CX-60, 70, 80, and 90. But in this vehicle, the lane keep assist is not good. There's also no lane centering. So the vehicle, you'll just be driving, you'll have that driving assist feature on, and it'll beep at you and throw you back in the lane, but not accurately, and I don't trust it at all. Also with the radar cruise control, as you are slowing down in traffic, if you have radar cruise control on, it is pretty harsh. And I always keep radar cruise control at the closest settings because that's typically how I drive. So at the closest settings with the radar cruise control, it brakes hard and then backs off and brakes hard and backs off. It feels like it's somebody driving the vehicle who is not paying attention, and it's not the best driving assistance features between the radar cruise and the lane keep assist. So hopefully Mazda can start using more of Toyota's, because Toyota's is really good, Honda's is really good. I say Toyota because Toyota owns a stake of Mazda. But that's it for the Mazda 3 Turbo Sedan. I've said all of what I wanted to say. I'm sure you guys have more things to ask me in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer that. If you haven't subscribed, I'd really appreciate that. I'll give you more Mazda updates along the way, especially with our large platform vehicles hitting the market in the next couple of years. We have the CX-50 coming out this year and much more coming from my channel and Mazda. I'll catch you in the next video, and as always, peace out.